Hello and welcome to my channel. It's a long time since we met. I think we met last at the beginning of December, so quite a lot has happened since then. So if you're new, welcome. If you're coming back for more, thank you very much. And if you find you enjoy this video and the content, then please feel free to subscribe and like. Okay. So since I last saw you, there's a few things to report back. I think the last time I saw you, I was working on the couple sitting on the bench, and that has been finished and has actually gone off to America and is in its new home. So I've got a couple of photographs to show you of how it turned out and in its new home, which is lovely actually, and you'll see the couple themselves holding it. So if Rob can put that picture up now, we'll have a look at that. So there they are, that's Steve and Cindy with their little versions of themselves, and that's at their house in America. They were really thrilled with it, which I'm pleased about, and they've actually managed to get themselves into a local magazine in their hometown in a Valentine edition, because they have got quite a loving backstory which they've got into the magazine, and my piece is featured in it as well, which is really nice. So I think we've got another picture. Yeah, there's Steve trying to wear a similar outfit to the one I sculpted him in, and finally there's Cindy with the little sculpture in the background on the table, so you get a sense of the size of it. So yeah, glad to say they were really pleased with that. Okay, thank you. So the other thing I was working on last time I saw you was the standing woman. Can you go back onto me please, Rob? And it was the piece that we were making along together. Some of you were actually making it alongside me. So I finished it. I can't show it to you because I sold it. Somebody bought it from me. If you remember, this was our reference picture, and I made a version of that. I mean, it wasn't the same at all, but the pose was the same, a simple standing pose. So I've got some photographs to show you of how it turned out. If you were making it alongside me, I know some of you were, and you want to send me photos of your finished piece, do that, and we'll put them up and show everybody on the next video in March. Okay, so just send it to me on Messenger or however you usually contact me, and we'll show it to everybody. So Rob, if you can just show the pieces. So this was shortly after when I last saw you, we'd done most of the sculpting of the body from the knees up. I think there were just the arms and hands to do, and she didn't have a head. So that needed the lower limbs and the head to do. So if we just run through these pictures now, Rob, this is how she turned out before she was coloured. So you can see she's now got all her legs, and she's got some chunky boots, and she's got hands and arms and a head. So there's a close-up of the hand. This is still in quite a rough stage, because although I didn't smooth it out that much, there was a bit more sanding done to the arms and hands to make them smoother. There she is again from a different side. I decided to give her short hair. Our reference picture actually showed her with long hair, but I thought she looked a bit more edgy with short, slightly messy hair. So close up of the boots, and you can see I actually did some frayed hems around the jeans at the bottom, on the hems of the jeans. Side view of the boots with the frayed hems of the jeans. Again, there's the hand now, and I haven't actually got a photograph of the other hand, but and you can see that she's standing on a, just stop there a minute, Rob. She's standing on a base which was just polystyrene, and if you remember, her legs had cocktail sticks, not cocktail sticks, chopsticks inside them, so I didn't cut them off below the boots. I stuck them into the polystyrene to support her, and it held her up beautifully. So here are the boots now coloured, and the jeans. And there's a close-up of the jumper. Do you remember we pressed real knitting into the wet clay to get a texture for the jumper? So I think that's worked quite well. And I decided to keep the jumper white or off-white, just to contrast, because I didn't want it to be too bright. So the jeans are just a pale denim-y colour and a white jumper. Now with the face here, you can see she looks quite shiny. Now that wasn't how she ended up. That was when I had just completed the face and the hair, and I'd coated her completely in PVA glue to seal everything. And at a later point, when that had dried, I actually put a matte varnish on to take the shine off her face. Here's a bit of a close-up of her face, and you can see actually she's still got blobs of glue showing because it hadn't quite dried when I took this picture. But it's a bit of a close-up of her face. I think we've got a closer close-up coming up. So she's got a sort of thoughtful pose. Next one. And here's a real close-up. So you can see that I did put some eyelashes on just to complete the eyes. And you can see the colour of the skin up close here, all done with powder, not paint. And here's the finished, well, almost finished. I haven't actually coloured the base in this picture, but you can see the effect of this. So I think we've got a couple more of these from different angles. I actually, with the base, I coloured it to look like a rock, so that as if she was standing on a rock. Only because the shape of the base suggested that to me. So there she is, and she's now living in, not far away from me actually. A lady bought her who's bought another of my pieces of another woman, so she's got the two of them now together, keeping each other company. So I'm on to my next commission now, which is actually quite an emotional piece. So I just want to give you a bit of background to it really, because it's worth knowing that when you look at the piece. I was contacted by a lady in Australia called Amanda, who had a 12-year-old son called Kyan, and tragically this time last year he was killed in a freak accident on they've got a big farm in Australia, on their land. I don't know the details of how he died, but it's just tragic that he died at the age of 12. And some of their local news stations took up the story of this accident, and Amanda became quite upset that everything that had defined Kyan's life came down to this accident, and nobody sort of was seeing the boy himself. It was just all about the accident. So she was very keen that the story of Kyan came out, and he was actually quite a special boy because he had taught himself to play the piano from nothing. I mean, none of the family read music or anything like that, and he had come across a piano while they were on holiday, started to play it, found that he could more or less reproduce most things that he heard, so he taught himself to play classical pieces on the piano. And there are videos of him playing, and it is quite remarkable really. And I mean, his mother was just astonished by this. She didn't know how he could do this, and their house was sort of filled with music. They bought him a piano so that he could play. And after this dreadful accident, they discovered amongst his belongings that he'd actually started to compose a piece of music. And they weren't able to read this music. They didn't know what it sounded like. So Amanda put out a call on Facebook asking people if they could play it to her so she could hear what he'd written. And this went absolutely viral, and loads of news stations took up the story. People from all over the country sent in recordings of them playing this piece. Various orchestras started to play this piece, and at Kyan's funeral there were recordings played of symphony orchestras playing this and arrangements of this piece. So it is quite a remarkable story. And she had seen my work on Facebook, and she asked me if I would sculpt him as a sort of tribute to him. And I was very reluctant to do this because it's, it's such an emotional story, and so much expectation riding on it in terms of the family. But I have agreed to do it, and I am sort of 3/4 of the way through it now. So this evening I want to show you what I've been doing on that, and perhaps do a little bit of work on it. And if any of you want to know the full story of Kyan, I'm going to put a link up at the end of this video. There's all sorts of YouTube clips of him playing the piano, there's the news stories that went out, there's Kyan's mother and father talking about him, and it's very moving and very inspiring actually. And Kyan's mother now is, she's had so many lovely messages from people all over the world about what happened to Kyan, that she's decided to create a place where troubled teenagers can come and have free art classes as a sort of way of giving back something to the community that have loved and supported her during this terrible time for them. So there's lots of details of how to get in touch with Amanda if you would like to, or if you're interested in just reading or hearing about it. So I'm going to just show you now what I've been working on in terms of Kyan. So he was a beautiful boy, absolutely stunningly beautiful child, with long shaggy hair and skinny little awkward gawky 12-year-old. And I talked to Amanda quite extensively about how we were going to sculpt him, and we thought about putting him at a piano, but we decided against that, and we decided to keep it very simple, with him just literally standing in a pose that's very typical of him, with his arm. He tended to sort of keep his hand sort of near his face like this, I think sort of this position, and we decided that we would have him holding the piece of music that he has written, and the way we're going to do that is I've got a photograph of his actual writing of this piece, and I'm going to shrink it down on the computer so that it's a size suitable for the sculpture, and he'll be holding it in his hand, so she'll actually see his own handwriting with the sculpture. The other thing we're going to do to make it more personal is that Kyan had a love of animals of all sorts, but he particularly liked the bird, the raven. And he said to his mother a while ago that if he was ever reincarnated, he'd want to come back as a raven. So Amanda was keen that in some way we should reproduce that somewhere in the sculpture, and I thought it would be a bit naff to have a bird in the sculpture. So what we've decided is that it'll be a very subtle reference to a raven by just putting a picture of a raven on the t-shirt that he's wearing in the sculpture. So it'll be very subtle and very small actually, so probably only she and her family will know what it is, but it'll mean something to them, which is the whole point of this sculpture. So if I just show you the beginnings of this piece, can we go down onto the... So this is the start of Kyan with his shaggy hair and his very typical stance. Amanda particularly likes that he had these bony little knees, so he's going to be wearing these shorts which aren't finished yet, and we're just showing his bony little knees and his rather gawky skinny body, typical of a 12-year-old boy, and obviously the shaggy hair, which is so characteristic of him. And he had these piercing blue eyes, and I tried to sort of reproduce those. You can just see there. So if I show you, I'm not going to show you lots of pictures of Kyan. You can see him on, if you decide to look on the video, you can see him. But this is the stance that I particularly like, with his knobbly little knees and the way he was standing. So this isn't an exact copy of his position, but it's a typical way that he was standing. I've been in touch with Amanda a lot all the way through the process so far, checking that things are as they should be, that she does recognise him in this sculpture. So that's it so far. So when I started off, I don't do children very often, And so to get the right proportions for a child, I consulted on Facebook, that you can find all these sort of charts on Facebook to help you with proportions for different age children. So you can find this very easily if you just type it into Google or something. Proportions of bodies for artwork, I think I put in something like that, and you'll find things like this. So it works on a grid of 8 head sizes. So if you look at the size of the adult male head, this is the chart obviously for the male. An adult male is usually roughly, this is just a very rough guide, 8 head sizes from head to foot. And then as the person gets younger, obviously they go down to fewer head sizes. Up here it shows you the way that a head size actually decreases in size as they get younger. But for this purpose, I didn't really consider that too much. I just looked at head size, an average head size. So this child here is age 10. So I made it roughly, I don't think there's a lot of difference between this one and a 12-year-old. So I took this one, and this is 7 head widths in height. Okay. So what I did next was I decided how big I wanted my eventual sculpture to be, and I made just a rough little head shape on a stick to use as a guide for how big my head chart is going to be. And then first of all, let me show you this. I made some very, very rough sketches using 7 head widths here. And the figure in the middle is a very basic stick person, showing how there's the head, then the various bits, looking at this chart, at what point of the body they would hit each line of the head chart. So that's how I got the proportions of this boy. Then I was trying out some different poses. Here he is holding the music, here he is with his hand to his face, and just plotted it in so that the knees, you see I put here that the knees would come just below this line, and so his knees are near enough there, and just plotted it out. And then when I decided how big I wanted my sculpture to be, and I'd made my very rough head shape, I then made it to scale. So this is my 7 head widths, and there's my head fitting into there. And so then I could see where each portion of his body would come, where the knees would be, where the hands would end, where the groin would start, where the waist was, the neck, and all this sort of thing. So then if you look at my piece, if I put him on there, you can see that although he's in a twisted pose, so it changes slightly, it's given me a good idea of proportions, and I think it's turned out pretty well actually. I mean, a lot of it was done by eye in the end, but I had the basis of how I was going to get the proportions right. So that's just so you can see how I started off, and you can see that the pose I've chosen, it's got a nice sort of S shape, which I think is always nice to give a feeling of movement. This hand, when it's done, there'll be a hand. He's got a very typical way of holding his hand. I'll show you another picture I've got of him here. This is him in the blue t-shirt, that's his sister. So here he is here, and if you see how he holds his hand like that, that's a very typical pose for him, with the hand sort of bent forward like that. Now that is going to be roughly how his hand is going to be in this sculpture, and in it he'll be holding his piece of music. Now the other hand, he's going to have his hand, as I was saying to you earlier, where he puts his hand close to his head, with his fingers up towards his hair. So that's where that hand will eventually be. The shorts, I've got to finish them, make them just a little bit longer down to just above his knobbly knees, but I'm not going to do that yet because I have to colour his legs first before I can put the shorts on. Then we've had long discussions about what he would be wearing with his mum, so he's going to have some navy shorts on. This t-shirt will be basically black sleeves and black at the back. And the front will have some sort of probably white or pale blue rectangle with the image of the raven on it, but very, very subtle. Now I've done the front part of his hair and I've coloured his face, because everything has to be done in a particular order in order that you can actually access various bits. So I had to colour his face first so that I could then put the hair over the top. And because he's got this very sort of floppy hair, I did it all with the clay. You can see at the back where I haven't coloured it yet. It's just wet clay put on and then using one of these tools, just raking through it and getting it to look like messy hair. But because I wanted these floppy bits down over his face, I actually made them with very, very thin coils of clay. So I just got tiny bits of clay and just rolled them and then put them in, and I think it's worked quite well. I'm quite pleased with the effect of that. On his feet, apparently he was renowned for walking about in his socks with no shoes on, so he's not going to have any shoes, he's just going to have socks on. And if we have a look at this picture, I've lost it now. This picture, you can see he's in some sort of basement with some fireworks, and he hasn't got any shoes on, he's just got his socks on. So that's what I'm going to do, because his mum said it used to drive him mad, and so it's a nice memory she's got of him. At the time it drove her mad, but now she'd probably give anything to have him back walking around without his shoes on. So what I thought I would do this evening is show you how I colour the next bit. So I'm going to colour his hair, the rest of his hair. And as some of you will know, I don't use paint to colour my sculptures. I often use tissue paper, coloured tissue paper, but this piece, I'm not sure yet whether there'll be any tissue paper, maybe on the t-shirt. I'll see how that goes. But certainly the hair is done with the dry powder. So this evening I'm just going to show you how I do that. And because his hair is quite dark, it is actually quite messy, so you have to be very careful. That was another reason for colouring his face first and gluing it and varnishing it, so that hopefully when I put the black powder on his hair it doesn't contaminate his face. And so yeah, I'm very careful when I'm putting it on that powder doesn't fall onto his face, because otherwise it's going to just muddy the colours on his face. So that's what we're going to look at this evening. What I also forgot to say was do ask questions as we're going along. Don't be shy if you want to ask anything. I'll try and answer your questions, but it's nice to hear from you, know that you're there. So you know, feel free to ask a question, and Rob's here as always and he will relay them to me. So the colours we're going to use this evening, these are not paints, as I've said, these are eyeshadows. So they're very just coloured powders, and I mean I wouldn't use any of these on my eyes, I must say, because they're very bright colours, but I've got a whole stash of these. I've got loads and loads of different colours of these, and they're just perfect for what I do. So this evening for his hair I'm going to use obviously the black one, but it's not a very dense black, so I just use it just to sort of colour it generally, and then I use this one, which is a sort of very dark purple, and that actually gives it a density which I like. the other thing I do is to use just a pencil, a nice sharp pencil, which can get right into the nooks and crannies of the hair. So if I miss a bit, or if I want to make it look a bit more strandy, I can use the pencil, but we'll see that as we go along. So obviously no water on this at all, it's all done dry. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold him at an angle so that the powder doesn't fall onto his face. I'm not too worried about it going onto his shirt because I can always sand that off, and the back is going to be black anyway, so that's not a problem. So first of all, I'm going to just put on a layer of black, and I'm just going to dab it on like this, just getting it into all the nooks and crannies. So you can see it goes on quite well, but it's, as I said, it's not very dense. So I'm just putting this on as we'll just do a little bit at a time actually, but I'll show you that I put just the basic black on to start with, and then I'm just looking at the style, if you like, of the hair, and seeing where the darker areas would be. So you've got skeins, is that the word, of hair. So obviously there are bits that are deeper inside the hair than the pieces that are on the top. So it's the deeper bits. I'm going to add some of this deep purpley colour and just put it in to the bits which are the hair behind the top hair, if you see what I mean. So this way it just gives it a bit more depth.
Liz Gamble says, where do you get your colours from? She can't find anything like that in Australia.
What, the eyeshadow colours? I go to, oh, I don't know what it's called now. It's like a sort of, I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like a supermarket for makeup of all sorts. I can't even remember the name of it. You can see, do you have a store there called Superdrug? Because Superdrug sell quite reasonably priced eyeshadow. I try not to spend a lot of money on them. Sometimes you can see two of these for the price of one or something, and then I buy them. But they last for ages. I mean, I've had these for a long time. I'll just show you actually. I'll break off a minute just to show you that the colours I use for the skin, these are my favourite sets for doing skin tones, because
what make are they? Perhaps they could look them up on YouTube or
these
get
are
them from
called,
Amazon or somewhere.
These are called Revolution Pro. I think all these sets are actually the same. Revolution Pro. Can you see that? It says it on here. And they're not too expensive. But this set is very good for skin tones, because you've got all sorts of different pinks, and you can really mix them together and get, you know, you can get rosier cheeks or just a good variety of skin tones. And this one again is good. I usually, with this set, I usually start off a face or any skin with this one, because it's a nice, very light, you can't go wrong with this one. You can put it on and then just build on it. So by putting that one on first, you get a feel for where the light and shade is in the face, and then you can start adding some darker colours. And these other darker pinks are good for lips, and then obviously you can use the brighter colours for eye colour, But I have got loads of these, and usually manage to find something that works. So you can see that this is starting to build up now. So I'm going to go back to the black now. Just dab it onto there. There's quite a lot of deeper set areas here, so I need to go back to my darker colour. And obviously hair is made up of lots of different colours because, you know, especially when the light is shining on it, what might look like black hair might have a lot of blue in it, or in this case I'm using this sort of purpley colour, and it can also have a lot of this yellowy colour in it where the highlights hit it, but at the moment I'm just sticking to a pretty basic palette for the hair, because his hair, although I think there was quite a lot of brown in it from the photos I've seen, obviously I'm only working from photos so I can't be absolutely certain, but the overall effect is of very dark hair. Now what I probably will do with this is when it's all fully coloured, I will I might actually just scrape off with an emery board like this certain areas just to add highlights, but I'll have to be very careful with that because, you know, obviously these little bits of, you can see there, look where it's sticking out there, little flicks of hair, that would be quite fragile if I started sanding it. As Liz is there, Liz, this evening I saw on Facebook, no, on Instagram, your latest piece you've done, which is lovely, really nice. I don't know what nationality the man was, but quite a sort of ethnic face you'd done. It was beautifully done, so you must be pleased with that. So, and Liz, did you actually finish your lady that we worked on the other
She said
videos?
She was making it, but it didn't work out.
Oh. Oh well, hopefully you picked up some ideas anyway from doing it.
And the man is Indonesian.
Indonesian, yeah. Well, he had a wonderful face. And you've done a great job. So, you know, do feel, any of you that are making things, do feel free to send me pictures and we'll show things on these videos. It doesn't have to be papier-mâché if you want to show anything else you've done. And, you know, if you've picked up ideas or something for doing papier-mâché and you want to pass them on to us, I'm sure we're all open to learning new things. Because, I mean, with what I do, I'm just self-taught. I just try things out, and if they work, I do them again, and if they don't work, I don't. So you can see it's starting to really shape up now. I need to get really underneath here where the hair is right under his collar, or against his collar.
You're in the way now.
Oh, sorry. Blocking the view. So I have asked permission from Kyan's mother to talk about him this evening. She knows that, and she's very happy for his story to be told. So I haven't violated her privacy at all by telling you about it. I think she's found huge comfort actually in being able to talk about him to people, and you know, for people to realise what a lovely child he was. And I was talking to her yesterday, and she was saying how working on this sculpture together has helped her, because he wasn't, you know, he was a typical pre-teen. He didn't really like his mum giving him cuddles and getting too close to him. And she hadn't realised until we started working on this just how much she knew his face, his body. You know, obviously a mother does, but you don't realise it until you can't see it anymore for real. And I've obviously had to ask her lots of questions. You know, did he stand like this? Was his face like this? Was his body like this? So, for instance, I made his tummy much too big to start with, and she was saying, no, he was very skinny. You must thin him down. And so it's things like that. It's brought back the memory of him to her, and she's realised that she knew him so well. I mean, it's just a dreadful way to find out that you know your child that well, but I think she said it's brought her some comfort, sort of thinking about him. So this is now building up, and what I plan to do when I've covered all of this, I will then put glue all over it to seal it so that this colour won't come off. You can see it's getting onto his shirt here. The powder is dropping onto it. So you know, if you're doing this method, then do be careful. You could put cling film or something all over the body if you've got something that's you desperately want to keep clean. I mean, as I said, I'm not too bothered about this because it's going to be black anyway. But if this was going to be a white shirt, I would have covered it all in cling film. You have got the advantage of leaving this bit till last, that if you did want to keep it a light colour, you could sand it and you could get all this powder off. So it's not the end of the world, but you know, it's just an extra job to have to do if you do get stuff on it. So again, I'm getting into the darker areas here, just blowing the excess off. Now let me just quickly show you how I might use the pencil. So here I just literally scrape it. It's a very pointy pencil. It's one of these propelling pencils, so it's nice and sharp all the time. So you can really get into the hair and just give it the look. And even when you've coloured it like that, you can just go over it. Gives it a little bit of depth, and just the scratching of this very sharp pencil just defines the hairs a little bit. If you are going to do what I've done, so here I'd already coloured the front of his hair and glued and varnished it, but what you must be careful about is if you put the glue and varnish on, don't put it on anything that you haven't coloured, because once you've done that, the powder won't go onto it, it won't sink in, it'll just fall off it, it'll be too shiny. So just be aware of that. So if I was to stop here and do that bit later, I would only take the glue to here. I wouldn't put glue anywhere near there, because otherwise I won't get any colour on it. So I'm literally just raking through this with the pencil, and you probably can't see that clearly on here. But it does just define the hairs a little bit. And if you find you've missed a bit, you can get into it. It's going to be quite tricky to get into that bit there. But doing hair like this, I think, just gives the whole piece movement. As I've said to you many times before, I do love to get a feeling of movement into the pieces that I do. And I think the pose this boy's in, it looks as if he's just turning. His t-shirt is sort of billowing up slightly here. It's just all these things, and then the way he's got his legs at the back and the way his hair is tousled, you can almost see the hair moving and him turning. So there's all sorts of ways you can get movement into your work. Because what I was saying to somebody the other day, with my pieces, I'm not trying to be hyper realistic with them. I know that they don't look absolutely real, but I think they've got a sort of life to them, a softness to them. They don't look absolutely stiff. There's a sort of softness and a movement to them, which I'm always striving to get. But I am very happy for them to be seen as being made of paper, because I'm quite proud of the fact that they are. So it's nice to sort of keep it obvious that they're made of something, that they're not real. Now here's a question for you. I had a couple of people on Facebook commenting about various pieces I've done, saying things like, you should use a different material, you should use clay, you should do this or that and the other, as if it's somehow inferior to use papier-mâché rather than clay. I know people mean it kindly, and it's not meant as an insult, but I do find it a little bit weird, because I think, well, it's a completely different art form, and if I wanted to do clay, I would do clay. I mean, the fact is, I love doing papier-mâché, and I'm quite happy to stick with that. So it just seems an odd thing to say to me, really. So it'd be interesting to see what you think about that.
So she gets that all the time.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? And I ran a workshop recently, and one of the ladies that came to do the workshop is a sculptor in clay, and she had assumed that coming to do a workshop with me, it would be very similar, that it would be just like sculpting in clay. But she told me it's absolutely different. She could not get over how different it is, and she found this extremely difficult. I know that's because it was something new to her, but the fact is, she thought that, and I thought actually too, that because she'd done a lot in clay, she would find it easy. But she said there are very, very obvious differences between the two materials. So I thought that was quite interesting. Right, so gradually working my way around this. So I think the last time I was on doing one of these, it was before Christmas. So I hope everybody had a nice Christmas and did nice things. We had a nice Christmas with the family all here, and it was very pleasant.
Okay.
Oh, hang on, it's all gone blurry. There we are. Sorry, I was getting trying to get into all the nooks and crannies and got my head in the way. So last little bit coming up here. Just being a bit careful now of the face.
Can you move it forward?
Why has it gone blurry? Right, I think that's just about done now. Just give it a bit of a scrape with the pencil. Just get into some of these hard to reach places. Right. I'm going to call that done. Okay, so there it is. So the next job is to glue it so that it stays put.
There's still quite a lot of white there. You're going to leave that white. In
Where?
that hair.
On the front here?
Well, all over.
I don't think there is actually. Well, if there is, it'll blend when I put the glue on. It'll blend it. Yeah, no, I'm quite happy with that, I think. Got me worried now, Rob.
Well, it looks like great highlights.
Yeah, it won't do when it's and I don't mind if there's some highlights actually, because as I was saying, you know, just because the hair is black, it doesn't mean there's not lighter colours in it, so I think it'll be fine. Okay. I think actually looking at the screen it does look as if there's white there, but I think that's just reflection. When you look at it up close, it's fine. A pencil is a very useful thing on this too, because with his face, I used a pencil just to outline his eyes and his pupil and around his iris, just to add definition to his eyes, because he has got such striking eyes. So the pencil was quite a useful tool. There he is up close. Okay, so I'm just going to put the glue on now. So you can see the powder goes everywhere. So here is my enormous pot of PVA glue. It is massive. So we're not going to need a lot. So I've just got my little dish here. Just pour a little bit out. paintbrush. Now you do need to really dab this on to get it right into all the nooks and crannies, because remember that you have to seal your papier-mâché to stop any fear of mould or anything like that getting into it. So, you know, take your time over this and be thorough. Put a lot of glue on. Now I do have to be careful here because I don't want to get the glue onto this shirt because I haven't coloured it yet. So I'm going to keep away from the bottom of his hair and actually not glue that bit until I've done the t-shirt. Another thing you could do for this, instead of colouring like I've done, and what I did consider doing for this one, but it was just so messy, I risked contaminating his face and making the colours of his face go muddy. You could actually colour the clay by just rubbing the powder into some papier-mâché clay and turning it black and then using that, but it's incredibly messy. You get it all over your fingers, and then anything you touch, you know, if you were to touch the sculpture in a place you didn't want to, then you know you'd have black all over it. It's extremely messy. So I didn't risk it in the end. I just thought I know this is more time consuming, but it's safer. I think, you know, you've got to plan things out a bit when you do these sculptures. Having taken so much time to get something right, you don't want to mess it up by getting colour in the wrong places. But I have done it with other things. I've done a piece where I coloured the clay a sort of denim blue when I was doing some jeans on a piece, and that worked okay. But it was still pretty messy. But I think it's quite a good method if, for instance, you're trying to join colours. Supposing here I was joining another colour to that, and I wanted to get a good edge. Then to colour the clay rather than colouring it afterwards is quite a good method.
And that glue will dry clear, won't it?
It will. You won't know it's here. It'll look like it does at the front when it's dried. Yeah, it probably looks a bit alarming if you're not used to using this glue, but yeah, once it's dry, you don't see it at all. So again, I'm not going to go too far down his head with this because I don't want to get it on the shirt. So I'm going to stop there, I think. Just make sure I've got into everywhere. And probably in about half an hour that'll be dry. Okay, so that was how we coloured the hair. So the next stage for me now, obviously that's all we'll do on this evening, but the next stage for me now is to colour his legs, and then I can finish doing the shorts because once this bit's done I can then add the shorts and I can put his socks on. I've got to do a bit more sculpting of his feet to get these absolutely right, but then I'll put his socks on. And then it'll be a question of finishing the hands. Hands, as you know, are quite tricky to do. And he's going to be in very specific poses with his hands, so it'll be a fiddly job, but you know, it'll finish him off nicely. Then it'll be doing the design on the t-shirt and shrinking down the music and putting it in his hand there. So when we meet again at the beginning of March, I hope he'll be finished by then, and then I can show you how he looks. Unless I've sent him off to Australia by then, I don't know, it depends how the time goes, but we'll have photographs of him anyway, so you can see. But if you are interested in reading Kyan's story, there'll be a link at the end of this video for you to look at. Okay, so I'm just going to prop him up.
I've got a couple of questions.
All right, okay, good. Yeah.
Okay, so Rowd Kennedy, does the finished piece get clear coated or is the glue adequate?
The finished piece will be completely coated in PVA glue, just to give it a completely thorough seal. And then, because I don't, you can leave it like that, but because I don't like my pieces to be shiny, I then put a matte varnish on. This is the one that I use, and it does take all the shine off it, and to my mind it looks a lot more natural. I always think that if you leave them shiny they look a bit like puppets, which is something I just like to avoid, but it's personal taste. But I buy this from Amazon. It's quite expensive, but it lasts for ages. I mean, you can see it's down to here. You just see that's how much I've got left. But I've had this for over a year, and I've done numerous workshops with it, so loads of people have used it, and I've still got that much left. So, you know, it might seem pricey, but it lasts a long time. But I get that on Amazon. You can probably buy it in art shops as well.
And Liz says, will we see you do his hands?
Well, I don't know. It depends how the time goes, whether I've done them. I'm up against some sort of deadline, because I have to get this to Australia, and then I've got other commissions waiting to start. So it's possible I will have done them. But what I am planning to do at some point is to do a session showing you how to do a hand. You know, we might just do a hand like this, so you can just see how you do it, and I'll do it on a bigger scale so you can see it more clearly, if you would find that interesting. So, you know, there's all sorts of little details we can concentrate on if people have got specific things they want to see how I do them, and see whether it's how you do them, or whether how I do them is useful to you, then, you know, just let me know and I can do something in one of the sessions. Any other questions?
No.
Okay, well, just to finish off then, just to tell you a few other things that have been going on. I've had pieces in 2 exhibitions now, so there's one that's just come to an end where I've got 6 pieces in that exhibition, and I've got 2 that's in Newport, which is in South Wales. If you're in the UK, you'll know where that is. It's in South Wales. And in West Wales, I've got 2 pieces in an exhibition in a place called Tenby. I am continuing with my programme of workshops. The next one I'm going to do is the 1st and 2nd of April. So if you are in the UK and you feel like a trip to Cardiff in South Wales to do a workshop, then get in touch with me. I've only just started to advertise that one, so there are spaces on it. I've also taken up with a shop in a place called Penarth, which is near Cardiff, and it's a shop called Glass by Design, and there's a lot of glassware in there, fused glass, but they sell other 3D artwork, so they don't sell paintings and things like that or display them. It's all 3D things. So they approached me and said, would I like to show some of my pieces in their shop. So I've said yes. But they also run workshops, and they've got a lovely space there for running workshops, and so I'm going to do workshops for them in their shop, and the first one is going to be in June. I think it's the 22nd and 23rd, something like that. So if anyone again is in the area and wants to join us for that, then get in touch and let us know. What else? That's a bit about it, actually. Just to tell you that the next broadcast we're going to do is on Sunday the 5th of March. So look out for that if you've enjoyed this one and want to see some more. But in the meantime, send me your pictures, send me any questions you've got, subscribe, and tell your friends to have a look at the video. They'll be up on YouTube now for you to watch. And in the meantime, have a good month, and I'll see you at the beginning of March. Bye for now.